everyone, welcome back to another episode of Women's Sports Update. My name is Adriana Leone and I'm here with Caitlin McDonough, and today we're talking about the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team. A lot of changes for this program in the past 2 years, both on the field and at the helm. We'll start with the coaching change. Emma Hayes came in about a year and a half ago and has really gotten off to a successful start. She came in at a really rough time for this team. They just had a disastrous 2023 World Cup appearance before she came in, and the expectations were really high for her to succeed in the 2024 Olympics, and I'd say she surpassed expectations. She coached less than 5 games with this team before the Olympics, and the U.S. went on to win gold, and she's the only other head coach in U.S. Women's National Team history to go undefeated in her first major tournament. Caitlin, I know I just gave Coach Hayes a lot of praise, but what is your evaluation of how she's done so far?
Coach Hayes is one of the best coaches in women's soccer, if not the world. She came in from Chelsea, and we saw the success that she had over in England, won 4 straight titles with the team. And that was just a remarkable achievement because you have the likes of Arsenal, Manchester City, and even Tottenham and Liverpool trying to compete for that title as well. And for her to win 4 straight with that team, and every single year it just seemed like her team got better and better. And she translated that over to coming into the women's national team. Like you said, she came in and followed in the footsteps of Anson Dorrance. We've seen the success that he's had with UNC women's soccer. And she's really not even just changed the culture of this team, but also just the playing style in general. She likes to play counter-attacking football and likes to have possession of the ball. We've seen it with the U.S. sometimes under the previous coach. They kind of just get stagnant. They don't know how to move the ball and advance it into the final third. They kind of just try to isolate the wings, have them play 1v1 and cross it into the box. But Emma Hayes says, no, we need to bring everyone in the team in. And that starts from the back line, right? She wants to have people play out of the back. It starts with the goalie, who plays it out to some of the left or right backs, and they advance it through the stages. They get that final third ball and have one of the wingers run onto it. These wingers are extremely pacey, extremely fast, and she doesn't like 1v1 a ton because she is all about that team atmosphere and that team environment. She likes the quick, pacey wingers, and we've seen much success going into the Olympics. Myself, personally, I really didn't think they would have the success that they've had, but it's just because of the culture shift that she's brought. She's brought a do or say die mentality. It's we're all in this together. When we win, we win. When we lose, we lose. And she also wants to uproot the culture of the women's national team in general, bringing on more females to get involved, and really just having a voice for women's sports just in general. She's a true leader, and there's going to be more success to come in the future for her, definitely.
I definitely agree with you on those points there, Caitlin. And like we were saying, she was put into a really difficult position to start her career, beat all the odds against her, and now she's being put in another difficult position with the players on the field changing since that 2024 Olympic win. Tierna Davidson tore her ACL playing for her club team. Sophia Wilson's out indefinitely due to her pregnancy. And Alyssa Nair, shortly after that Olympic run, retired from national team play. They've had a couple of games since these key players have left, but what are your evaluations of this team since these key departures? And is there anything you think that Coach Hayes or even the players on the field can fix?
Truthfully, those injuries were definitely tough to replicate, not just only on the field, but also off the field. Those are 2 veterans of this team. They have been for a while, and it's funny to call them veterans in a sense because they are so young, but they have so many appearances with the national team already. They've already stamped their mark, and those injuries remind me of when Mallory Swanson got injured right before the Olympics. Everyone thought that she was going to be the main striker and how we would fare without having her on the field. But again, it goes back to the mentality that Emma Hayes brings in, that yes, we lose one key player, but someone is going to come right in and step right up. And that's exactly what I think someone like a Catarina Macario has done, really filling those shoes. And like you mentioned, those injuries were tough to come by. We saw that in the She Believes Cup. They weren't in sync as they were when they were playing in the Olympics. They beat the likes of Colombia and Australia, both scoring 2 goals in that match. But when they got to Japan, a more experienced team, this Japan rivalry goes back and forth, all the way dating back to a bunch of World Cups where Japan would get the upper hand and then the U.S. would win. And against a team like Japan, they just couldn't really find their rhythm, right? Japan really honed in on those absences like you mentioned, and especially at the back line, Japan were extremely patient. They wanted to create the space on the outside. They would have defenders draw closer towards the middle of the field and really exploit the space outside, and it was definitely going to be a challenge overall, and they did lose the She Believes Cup, but I don't think the She Believes Cup, that's something to be too heart-bent by, right? It is a major tournament, for the U.S., but when you have those key losses like that, you really just want to focus on emphasizing who can we come in and who can fit the system, that when we go to another major tournament like the upcoming World Cup, that you can think these players can step in and really carry the torch. And we also saw that against Brazil as well.
And I think the really cool part about the Brazil game was that it was the first professional women's game to be played at SoFi Stadium. And it was really cool to see them draw in a larger audience than the men's team did. But despite all that enthusiasm that came from this great moment in history for women's sports, there was there were flaws for both teams. Both teams shouldn't and didn't walk out of those two games feeling like they played their best. What do you think both sides could have done to walk away from the weekend series with both wins instead of a 1-1 split?
Yeah, I mean, both coming into this game, it was a rematch of that gold medal matchup in the Paris Olympics in 2024. So you knew it was going to be extremely physical from the start. And from Brazil's standpoint, they did really well being physical. They played a much better second game against the women's national team. They beat them 2-1. That was actually the U.S. women's national team first loss since December of 2014. Just remarkable story for them, but I think the one thing that Brazil needed to do was they didn't convert their chances, especially in the second game. They did a really great job as well of having a narrow line of forwards across that back line, and so what they would do by being narrow is they would have space on the outside, and then they would have one of their left or right backs, kind of just mosey on up into that space, and they would draw defenders and they would draw the midfield of the women's national team in and really do exploit that space on the outside. And that's something that the women's national team, they struggled with. They didn't have a core midfield, and it's like you said, because of those injuries, they couldn't really replicate that physicality in the midfield. In the forwards for Brazil, they also did a really great job of dropping in to receive the ball, because when you drop in to receive the ball, that pushes the defender out of their space, leaving gaps in places for them to exploit, and that's exactly what Brazil did. But I just think they didn't convert their chances like they should have. And on the U.S. standpoint, they needed to be more physical as well. Brazil really kind of kept them pushed in, especially on goal kicks. It starts with the goalie. If she decides to go for a long ball, Brazil would ultimately win the header. They'd win the second ball. So the U.S. really could not get out of their half, essentially. And even like Emma Hayes does want them to play out of the back, it was kind of a calamity at times. They would be sloppy, give the ball away, allow Brazil to pounce. And if Brazil was more clinical on chances, they could have probably won the first game, but the U.S. did held strong. But I also think that the U.S., they didn't have the pace that they generated like the first game. In the first game, we saw them completely isolate the left and right backs, and that's because they're at their best when midfielders are driving with the ball through the space and they're carrying it to open space to play those through balls with. And with the U.S., instead of playing narrow like Brazil does, they like to play wide. So when they play wide, they have huge gaps in the defense so they can just send those through balls in. That's when Emma Hayes likes to use her pacey wingers. They just didn't do enough of that in the second game. Brazil really hunkered down and said, you can stay out wide. We're not going to worry about you too much. We're going to have an eye on you. And they really just eliminated every single through ball. So I think for the U.S. going forward, they need to find ways to break down the defense more, not just relying on the through ball, but maybe having players come in tighter and have a narrow game. But we shall see in the future.
I think it'll definitely be interesting to see how this team's future plays out, especially considering that this is probably the first time in about a decade that the squad looks really different, and we don't have superstars on it anymore, or known superstars, I should say.
Exactly.
Team's still extremely talented. Well, that is all the time that we have to talk about women's soccer, but don't go anywhere yet because I'll be bringing in our WNBA analyst to break down the 2025 WNBA draft. I'm now joined by our WNBA analyst, Stacey Collier II, and with the end of the collegiate season, it means that the 2025 draft is right around the corner. Stacey, what are your first round picks predictions looking like?
First of all, I feel honored that you called me a WNBA analyst. So for all you that's watching, that's my future title right there. But
Yes.
I'm not going to say all 12. I'm going to let the graphic tell the story. But I'm going to just highlight the players that I'm be looking forward to definitely in this draft. First of all, Paige Beckers going #1 overall to the Dallas Wings. That's a no-brainer. Pair her with Rika Ogunbowale. Rebuild that backcourt, rebuild the whole team in general for the Dallas Wings, and that's all with Paige Beckers. You can't pass her up. At 2, the Seattle Storm taking Kiki Irifin from USC. Arguably the second best overall prospect in this WNBA draft. Thank you to Olivia Miles for going back to school. But she's fantastic. After Juju, she's the most important player on that USC team this past season. Number 3, I got the Washington Mystics taking Anissa Morrow from LSU. A walking double-double. In my opinion, she was the best player on LSU. I know Flau'jae got the hype and everything. Flau'jae did well this season. But Anissa really impressed me with her game. And then the Washington Mystics, this draft is very important for them. They have to rebuild their team. Their team been through it for the past few seasons, losing players left and right. So they really got to hit in this draft. They have 3 first-round picks. But I'm going to get to their other pick in a minute. Golden State Valkyrie, this is your time. Establish that new coach, establish that new team. Take Hailey Van Lith out of TCU, the point guard. We all saw her at Sports Illustrated. She's doing her thing right now. She's doing her thing. But she had one hell of a season, went to Elite 8, the only player in history to go to Elite 8 3 times with 3 different programs. So that's amazing, and they're going to need that fanfare that she comes with. Washington Mystics at 6. I got them taking Georgia Amore out of Kentucky. Now, I know the thing about her is she's 5'6". That height is going to probably kill her. She might drop in the first round, but she's been consistent. They need somebody to run the floor at the point guard position. Like I said, they got to take Anissa Morrow. They still got Leah Edwards from UConn, who I think is going to take an improvement this year. She's definitely going to be the new leader of their team. So you need somebody to run that show. I like her game. She's a bit under the radar to me for star power. She might be as good as Hailey Van Lith, but I think that she's going to go 6. Connecticut Sun is the second team that I'm going to be looking at. They has to rebuild their team. You lose Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna Bonner, the list goes on and on. So I got them taking French center Dominique Molonga. She is ranked number 2, or she's high as 2 as far as total prospects. But I think she's going to drop because of team needs and maybe because the fanfare that comes with somebody like Hailey Van Lith and Anissa Morrow. She's going to drop, but she's going to be important for the Connecticut Sun to rebuild their team going forward. I got the LA Sparks taking Sedona Prince from TCU. Ooh, just imagine her with Cam Brink.
Yeah.
Twin towers.
That's going to, yeah.
Twin towers. But I think they should definitely take her because we don't know where Brink is as far as her recovery. And she might return later in the season rather than sooner. So you're going to need somebody to block those shots. She's like 6'7". You're going to need that size. And then let's talk about 12, Michaela Tempton, Florida State, who put up a double-double against Syracuse this past season. They're going to need to rebuild that 4th spot because they lost Natasha Howard. So, that's my first round predictions.
Some interesting picks that you have there, Stacey. I definitely do think that going to TCU was the right move for Hailey Van Lith. I do think that she did increase her stock this year. It's just a phenomenal performance by her, especially because last year at this time she was being mocked on social media when she played Caitlin Clark, and now she led TCU to its first ever Elite 8. And someone that you didn't touch on, but I know was on the graphic, Sonia Citron, silent assassin for the Notre Dame team. you have Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo getting all the talk, and Sonia Citron just did what she needed to do, but she does it really well, and she's going to do it really well for another team. So those are two players that I'm really excited to see kill it in the WNBA.
Yeah, they're going to need that scoring prowess that she's going to bring because, like I said, the Mystics are just – they starting over pretty much. And then they need to build that team around not only Leah Edwards but Shakira Austin, who, you know, she needs to stay healthy, but she's very talented at that center position. So get those two healthy, use all three of those picks well they got in the first round. We talking about a Mystics team that can do something in a few years with development.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see just how the 2025 draft plays out. But that's all the time that we have today for this episode of Women's Sports Update. I'm Adriana Leone, and we will see you guys next time.